being in the UCD Sutherland School, it's all about bringing out the best in students, giving them the skills that they need to progress in the future. And the biggest skill that I learned during my time here is critical thinking and a curiosity and a willingness to learn.
Being a student at Sutherland has given me some amazing opportunities. I have been able to study abroad in Madrid, and this is a great academic experience, but the most valuable part of this opportunity for me was meeting people from all over the world and experiencing new and diverse cultures.
Well, I recommend the Sutherland Law School, first of all, because practical concerned, like the building is brand new, all the lecture theatres, you have all the amenities you want, and because of the overall atmosphere around campus and the excellent quality of the lecturers and tutors here.
I absolutely encourage any international students aiming to do an high-level PhD to come here at UCD Sutherland School of Law.
If anyone wanted to study in Ireland, then UCD and the Sutherland School of Law would be the place to be.
Welcome everybody to the UCD Law Summer School 2021. We're delighted to have you here. I can see that there is a really good attendance today. There's over 100 students, which is probably more than we would have packed into a lecture theatre. So it's great to see you all. My name is Dr. Niamh Howlin, and I'm one of the academic staff here in the law school. I'm going to just start things off by telling you a little bit about how today's summer school is going to work. I'll introduce the other participants. And later on, there's going to be an opportunity to ask questions. So if a question occurs to you during any of the presentations, feel free to just type it into the Q&A box that you'll see at the bottom of your screen, and then we'll take the questions all together at the end. But don't feel that you have to wait till the end to type it in. So today, in an hour, we're going to hear from a number of different staff and students who are going to give you a few different perspectives on the law school here at UCD. So hopefully you'll get a fairly rounded picture of what it's like to study here. So we're going to hear from Emer Nolan, who's studying law with Chinese. Then we're going to hear from one of our graduates, Eamonn Butler, who studied law and history and is now training to be a solicitor. And then we'll hear from Sarah Patton, who studied law and French, and she's going to be a barrister. In the second half of the hour, you're going to hear from some of my academic colleagues. Dr. Mark Coen and Dr. Cliona Kelly are going to give mini lectures based on their areas of expertise. And this will give you a taste of what studying law subjects might be like. And then, as I say, we'll take all the questions and answers in the last 10 minutes. So I'm going to start now by introducing our first student speaker, Emer Nolan. Emer is just about to go into her final year on the Law and Chinese programme, if I'm correct, and she has been very involved with extracurricular activities at UCD. She's really been very busy in her first 3 years here, and she's been a peer mentor for first year students, and she'll tell us a little bit about what that involves. So I'm going to hand over to you now, Emer.
Perfect. I hope everybody can hear me and can see me properly. Perfect. My name is Emer. I'm a third year law with Chinese student at Sutherland School of Law at the moment. It's definitely a unique degree choice, but it's something that I'm definitely really enjoying and would recommend to others. I have the little video up about law with Chinese if you're in any way interested. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of kind of what I've been up to in my time in college, but predominantly how the peer mentor program worked for me and what my experience as an actual peer mentor was like. So first of all, my name is Emer, obviously, as I've said. When I was in first year, I got really involved with UCD Law Summer School, something that I'll definitely be talking about a little bit more. I also took part in the UCD Volunteers Overseas program, something that was really, really beneficial to me when I was in first year. I spent a month volunteering in Tanzania with one of my friends from the course, and it was really, really interesting, something I would recommend getting involved in, something really unique that UCD offers. When I was in second year, I kind of carried on being really involved with LawSoc. I organised the junior schools debating competition when I was there, if anybody has participated in that, which was definitely an experience of being responsible for about 250 students was definitely no mean feat, but it was, again, just really interesting. When I was in the summer of second year, I took part in the European debating championships, which was really, really interesting. Again, that was held online, which was definitely an interesting experience. And when I was in third year, I, again, just kind of did a lot of work on my academics. I spent a lot of time learning Chinese, given that I was meant to be in China, and spent a lot of time working for LawSoc. And now that I'm finished my third year, I'm currently completing an internship at a law firm in Dublin, which I'm just on a break from that at the moment to do this. Something I'm definitely learning a lot from, and an opportunity that was definitely given to me by the fact that I study in UCD. And I'm now in fourth year. Next year, I'll once again be taking the academics very, very seriously, as it's my final year. And I'm going to be the secretary of LawSoc next year, which is one of the more senior roles, something I'm really excited for. So I'm going to give a brief overview of kind of what my experience with my peer mentor was like and how it really benefited me. So I'm going to break this up into three sections. First, my experience with my peer mentor, kind of the early days, then how I began to cope without my peer mentor, and then what being a peer mentor was like for me. So first of all, kind of the very first days of college are definitely very daunting for people. And I think having a peer mentor makes a massive amount of difference to that. It makes it so much easier just knowing that there's somebody there who's been through it all before and who kind of knows the ins and outs of everything. The peer mentor can kind of answer all of those little niggly questions that are just kind of stressing you out, and you're just not sure who to ask because you'd be too daunted to ask a lecturer or anybody like that. Not always ask lecturers questions, but sometimes you think, oh, maybe this question isn't appropriate. And maybe if you haven't met people yet, you're not sure who to ask. The answer is always the peer mentor because they've been there before. Perfect. So on the very first day, your peer mentor can just kind of show you around the campus. They'll take you on a tour. You'll be in a group with your peer mentor. So you'll have one peer mentor to about 5 or 6 maybe students. They'll probably be doing your course or a course similar to yours, definitely law, but if you're doing a law with, it could be law with history mixed with law with Chinese, which is what I did. The tour of the campus is definitely very helpful. Not that you'll take everything in because it's so overwhelming. UCD is huge, but it's just nice to have somebody kind of show you around, point out good lunch spots, things like that. And kind of while you're doing the tour, your peer mentor will be able to just explain to you how law will work for first year, just to kind of explain to you what to expect, what not to expect, and just little tips and tricks that are going to help you prepare. They answer all the kind of practical questions about, do I need to buy law books? And it's a really great way to meet people as well, because they'll obviously kind of help you bond with your group. You might even do a fun activity. You will do fun activities with your peer mentor and your groups. We did kind of a sports day and things like that. They're very, very interesting and always good fun. They teach you, they help you with all the practical things like getting a student card. They'll help you get your LEAP card, show you how to use the online resources and how to use the library, things that are just really, really important, but you might not even know that you have to do. They'll kind of explain to you how societies work and encourage you to get involved with societies. Something that definitely was great for me. My peer mentor was very involved with LawSoc and definitely is the reason that I became so involved. And because of that, we're now really good friends. I would definitely see my peer mentor as more of a college friend rather than a peer mentor at this stage, although I texted him right up until the very end to be like, something has happened here. I need some help, please, some small guidance. It's always just really nice to know that they're always there and they're always one step ahead of you. And they had somebody with that one step ahead of them to help them with their queries. Perfect. The other thing that peer mentors can be really, really great for is around exam time. They can help you with any worries that you might have, kind of help you put together study strategies, just explain what to expect from college exams, how to find your seat in the exam hall with thousands of people rather than the 100 people you know in secondary school. So it's just, in all those ways, I found the peer mentoring program to be so, so beneficial. It made a massive difference because you just know that you always have that to fall back on. And then, of course, you begin to kind of progress without your peer mentor. You find yourself texting them less and less, which is always nice because you kind of find your feet in a society or in any kind of extracurricular, or just kind of made your friends and you're happy enough to just ask them questions, which is always really nice. So that's kind of what I did. I had my group of friends. We went on a class trip together, things like that. We all ended up joining LASOC. Things were just kind of really great after that. And I found myself relying on my peer mentor less. And then when I was a peer mentor myself, I really enjoyed the experience because I found that I had picked up so many things that were just like, that I had never noticed before, that my peer mentor hadn't explained to me because he had never experienced, but things that I have experienced. And I, again, was a peer mentor with a group of friends, and we all really focused on just kind of trying to get as many first years to know each other as possible, because we think that it's so important to just form those bonds and form those friendships really early on, and to make the transition into college life as easy as possible. And I think that's a really unique experience offered by UCD. So that's pretty much it. That's how the peer mentor program works. I definitely recommend UCD for the reason that the peer mentor program exists and is really beneficial to be a part of. I really hope you guys have a good day for the rest of the day. Good luck.
Thank you so much, Emer, and thanks for taking the time to come and speak to our students today in the middle of your busy day working in a solicitor's firm. And clearly you're multitasking, not just during the academic year, but also over the summer as well. So if anyone has any questions about anything that Emer discussed, you can pop them into the Q&A box at the bottom and we'll deal with all the questions at the end. So now I want to spend a couple of minutes talking to you about maybe some of the more nuts and bolts aspects of studying law at UCD. I just want to say a little bit about what it's like to study law at university. And I'll show you a nice picture of our Sutherland Law School building. We're not there today, but hopefully at some point in the future, we will be there. So university learning is quite different from the learning that you will have been doing up to this point. So when you come to university, we really focus on trying to help you become an active learner and an independent learner. So it's not that we sit and pass on all our knowledge to you, but we're trying to get you to develop skills so that you can go and find things out for yourselves, that you can go and think critically about problems or apply the knowledge that we give you to practical situations. So we don't just talk about legal principles and laws in a vacuum, because law doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists in society. And we're very much focused on looking at how law operates in real life. So you'll be seeing how law applies to everyday situations, and you'll get a lot of practice applying law to hypothetical scenarios. So you're going to learn in different ways. So you'll be writing essays, you'll be carrying out research projects, you will be giving presentations, maybe on your own or maybe with a group. There'll be different types of projects. You might do some moots, some mock courts, reading cases and reading legislation. So it'll be quite varied in terms of the activities that you're involved in. You'll spend a lot less time in the classroom than you will have been spending while you're in school. So we only have a few hours a day of classes, and then the rest of the time is unstructured. So you go off and you figure out for yourselves how you're going to spend that time. So you certainly will spend some time in the library. We don't expect you to spend all of your time in the library. And you'll hear from the students talking to us today that there are lots of things you can get involved in other than your classwork. So it's important to find a balance between everything. Now, there are lots of different ways that you can study law at UCD. So you can study law on its own, or you can study law with various other subjects. So you'll see them listed on the screen here. You could take economics or history or philosophy or politics or social justice and so on. You can also study law with business. So some of these are subject areas that you may already be familiar with from school, and some of them are things that you won't have encountered before. So you can find out more about what the different subject areas are. Generally speaking, for most of these degrees, you would spend 2/3 of your time studying law subjects and 1/3 of your time studying subjects from the other discipline, so whether it's history or philosophy. The only one that's a bit different is law and business. So for that one, you split your time about 50-50 between the law subjects and the business subjects for the first couple of years. And then later on in your degree, you can choose to specialize in one or the other. So it's quite a good degree for people who aren't 100% sure if they really want to specialize in law. We call our classes modules, and you take 6 modules per trimester or per term. So you would have maybe 4 law modules and 2 modules from another discipline. Now, even though we have 10 different degree programs, there are just 2 CAO codes that you would need to know about if you're thinking of applying to study law in UCD. So we've got the DN 610 for business and law, and then we have DN 600 for all the other law degrees, whether it's law on its own or law with another discipline. So once you've decided which of these law programs you're most interested in, the next thing is you need to figure out what subjects you're going to study. Now, in all our degree programs, you spend the first 2 years studying what we would call foundational subjects. So everybody does the same subjects for the first 2 years, the same law subjects. And that's the same whether you're doing business and law or law and philosophy or law and history. So basic subjects that you're going to cover at that stage would be, for example, criminal law. So you learn about different criminal offences. What's the difference between murder and manslaughter? Is there ever a good defence for murder or any other excuse or defence for a criminal offence? You learn about contracts. So what would make an agreement or a contract binding or valid under the law? Can you get out of an agreement or a contract if you simply changed your mind? Another subject that you'll take in your first years is tort. And that subject is all about what are your responsibilities towards other people that you interact with in your daily life. For example, if you're driving down the road, do you owe a responsibility towards other road users? Another foundational subject is property law. So what do we mean when we say that somebody owns something? If you own something like a piece of land, does that mean you can do whatever you want with it? Or are there limits on how people can use their property? Another very important foundational subject is European Union law. So what is the European Union law and is it part of Irish law? These are very fundamental questions. And in constitutional law, you will learn all about the basic rules for how our country is run and what people's basic fundamental rights are. So once you've laid a really strong foundation with these subjects in first and second year, then when you go into your third and fourth year, you get to specialize a little bit more and you can choose subjects that match your own interests. So you may find that you're passionate about human rights, or you may be fascinated with criminal justice or international law or banking law. So there are loads of options in third and fourth year. You might also take an opportunity to spend a period of time studying abroad if you're doing a law degree with us. So we actively encourage students to think about spending a half a year, so a trimester, or maybe even a full year, studying in a law school in another country. If you're to study the law degree with Chinese, French, or Irish, you will have a built-in period of time abroad as part of your degree. So you automatically spend some time abroad with those degrees. If you're studying one of the other law degrees, it's optional, and you might choose to go to North America, Europe, Asia, Australia, and other places. We have lots of links and connections set up with different law schools around the world. You can see some of them pictured here on the map. It's not a very high quality picture, but you get the idea, and that there are lots of places that you might go. one of the great things about a law degree is that it teaches you a lot of transferable skills, such as critical thinking and research skills and communication skills. And these kinds of skills can be used in a variety of different jobs. So not everyone who studies law and completes a law degree goes on to work as a lawyer. So many of our graduates do go off and become barristers or solicitors, working in a big firm or representing people in court, but not everybody does. And there's a lot of flexibility built into a law degree in that way. So the degree can take you to many different places. You could, for example, go for a career in the public service, a financial services, or maybe in an NGO. Other types of career path that students take may be to go international and to work maybe for the EU or the UN. So there are quite a lot of options available when you finish your degree. And we do have quite a lot of career advice and information and mentoring once you get here to help you to figure out what's the career path for you. So there's a dedicated careers office in UCD. They put on lots of events where you can go along and hear people talking about their jobs in different sectors and find out what it's really like. They also help with things like writing a good CV, applying for jobs, applying for internships, and so on. So you don't need to know when you start your degree what you're going to do at the end. So don't worry if you don't have a plan going into it. You develop that plan as time goes on. And like all plans, you know, they're subject to change as well. And the last thing that I want to mention is that there are different ways of coming to us at UCD. And we can give you whatever information you need about all the different access and entry routes into our programs. So we have the CAO, which is probably where most of our students come from. So the Leaving Cert and the CAO system. We have mature students entry. We have international students. We have FET entry, and we have the Here and Dare programs. So the students that we have here in the law school are from a variety of different backgrounds, and we really value the diversity in the law school, and we value having people from different cultural and educational backgrounds. So that brings me to the end of what I wanted to say to you about the law programs. If you have any questions about any of that, feel free to pop them into the discussion box at the bottom, and we'll deal with them at the end. So we're now going to hear from another one of our students, or I should say a past student, Eamonn Butler. Eamonn graduated with a degree in law and history in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And he's now in the final stages of training to be a solicitor, and he works in one of the large law firms in Dublin. So Eamonn's going to talk to you a little bit about his own experience, and I think a little bit about career opportunities that are available for law students. So thank you, Eamonn.
Thanks very much, Dr. Howlin, and hi everyone, and thanks for joining. I didn't realise that video was going to be played at the start. Don't think there's that more terrifying than looking and listening to yourself speak on screen, but I suppose it's best to begin with a brief overview of myself. As mentioned, I'm a trainee solicitor in Arthur Cox in town, and I'm less than 2 weeks away. I'll be sitting my final exams to be in line for qualification as a solicitor in just a few months. I went to small secondary school in Ballingarry in South Tipperary, and I'm sure, like many of you, I'm the first person in my family to pursue law or study law. After school, as Dr. Howlin mentioned, I studied law with history at UCD, secured a solicitor's training contract, and studied for a Master of Law at Cambridge in the UK. I suppose the purpose of my chat today then is to give you an overview of this journey and the early career trajectory of a recent graduate who really isn't too far removed from the position you're in right now. Going back to the beginning of that journey then, I was in your, not too long ago, I was in your unenviable position of looking at careers and filling out the CAO form and that, and always an anxious time. But, you know, as a 17 or 18-year-old, you barely know what you want for dinner, let alone what you want for a 40-year career. So the two questions I'm kind of asked most about that is, one, why law, and two, why UCD? I'm always asked those two questions. The why law question, firstly, is fairly simple. My aptitudes in school subjects, reading, writing, debating, etc., kind of pointed or indicated towards the law. But in particular, I absolutely loved history in school, and still do. And the unique offering of law with history, as Dr. Howlin kind of mentioned there, from UCD allowed me to continue to study history at the history school while also obtaining a full 4-year degree in law at UCD. So that was kind of relieved the stress of my choice and made that a bit easier. Then the second part is why UCD specifically. So aside from the offering of law with history as a course, it was really the size, resources, and especially the reputation, recognition of the law school that kind of pointed me towards UCD. I was aware of in particular, I think around 5th or 6th year, I was aware of the esteem of the graduates of UCD who had gone there and what they had gone on to do as alumni. I always remember seeing the people who went to UCD and the name recognitions they had and what they had done in the judiciary, at the bar, solicitors' practices, and farther afield in law. And I kind of said, if that's reason enough to go. And then as an entire university outside of law, it was important for me that UCD offered what others could not in terms of sport, resources, in addition to being that top law school. UCD is all tied together in one campus in Belfield. You've seen the pictures in Dr. Howlin's presentation of the law school and the campus, modern law building, and all the resources of sport that you could want. And that really attracted me at the time, I remember. Then after school, the next step in my journey, I suppose, was to actually go to Belfield and start studying and experiencing UCD law. I'm often asked about this as well, what sticks out about my experience in UCD by prospective students, and the word that sticks out really is, or the thing that sticks out is opportunity. The opportunities that I was given by virtue of studying at UCD. So briefly, some of the standout highlights of these include, a couple of great years involved in the UCD GA club, traveling around the country on buses and trains, hurling against different colleges. That really sticks out. And some of the best friends I made was hurling freshers in UCD in first year. A week trip to Berlin with the UCD History Society was a highlight. Writing an article for the law school's own in-house student-run law journal. And I think one of the main highlights then was being sent by the law faculty to clerk at the Federal Defender Program in Chicago for 3 months of the summer. These are the kind of international links and connections that the UC Law School offers, and the kind of launch pad it can give you. I remember when I was there meeting a district court judge in the Northeastern Circuit in Illinois, and she mentioned that Professor Una Breen had bunked with her in Chicago when she was just a clerk. So Professor Breen, now professor in UC Law School, all the way up to me clerking. That's the kind of continuous link that UCD forged with the Chicago Federal Defender. And if I'm not mistaken, another student went to LA and did something similar in my year, and in every year. And then, of course, UCD served as a launch pad for me personally and for a lot of my classmates to attain a top training contract in a practice in Dublin, and personally to pursue further study at an institution like the University of Cambridge for a Master of Law. And these are the kind of opportunities that UCD gives you, and the doors it can open for you and your classmates and for graduates. And then I suppose that's kind of hits on reputation of UCD, but the facilities and the law faculty and the support and resources it gives as well were extremely important for me and were a highlight of the experience. So, for example, something that isn't often talked about, but that is really important, is that the law school has a devoted career development department, which makes everyone aware of all the opportunities out there for students and for graduates, and organizes career talks and events, and promotes the students with employers and brings employers in to give talks and canvas within the law school. And throughout your time, but personally, I remember actually we were applying for various internships or graduate programs or whatever, and all our classmates, and the law school's career development service actually linked us up with previous graduates who had done the exact same thing, who could provide us with guidance and the exact same process that they had gone through and guide us through it. So it was a really valuable resource. And then throughout your time at UCD, if you do decide to study law there, you'll require guidance from lecturers, and you'll probably forge personal relationships with a lot of lecturers. You know, they'll become mentors to you. I remember several of them acting as referees for myself and other classmates for internships and various other things. And really, I never found a closed door with any of them. I suppose, having discussed my path then from school to college, you know, sitting here studying for final exams to become a solicitor, I should mention that the career opportunities don't really stop at what I've outlined for myself. That was just one path that I kind of chose. But law at UCD sets students up for a far broader array of career starts than just my one. And if I was to make a final point, it would be that a lot of my classmates, you know, branched out and did very different paths. And they would equally be as interesting in their discussion of their paths. So, for example, I have classmates who are barristers, civil servants in departments, working in politics, working in the EU, working in media here and abroad, as diplomats for the Department of Foreign Affairs, in business as consultants and accountants and other roles, as trainee lawyers in the UK, both barristers and solicitors, and pursuing PhDs here and abroad. So this is the kind of launch pad and the opportunity that UCD gives you, and that's kind of the one thing that sticks out to me when someone asks me about my early career trajectory and why I would choose UCD again. And I would absolutely choose law with history at UCD again because of that reason, the opportunity that it gives. So thanks very much for listening and attending. And if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know.
Thanks very much, Eamonn. That was great to hear about all your experiences. And it's lovely to have you back to UCD, even though it's virtually today. So our next speaker is Sarah Patton. And Sarah, as far as I know, is studying law with French law. And I know there's always quite a few questions from people who are interested in finding out about the French degrees. So I'll hand over to you, Sarah.
Thanks very much, Dr. Howlin. So I'd say a lot of what I have to say will actually overlap with what Eamonn said, but my name is Sarah and I graduated from law with French law in 2019. So I'll just give you a general overview of how I chose law and how I've ended up now working as a judicial assistant in the criminal courts. So I had an interest in law in transition year and I took a trip to the criminal courts with a barrister for a week, which I found really interesting. But I would say I didn't decide on law until about halfway through sixth year. Unlike Eamonn, I didn't have the typical subjects. I actually studied all three sciences in school. So I would say not to worry if you haven't got the likes of history and all that. But I just really landed on law through a lot of research, just talking to people, ask as many questions as you can, attending talks like this, and then just seeing if what would appeal to me. And I know obviously it can be difficult. Law is not one of those subjects that you really get to study in school. So, but I think it is a great foundation degree as a general degree for the future anyway. And then landing in French law, I suppose I just wanted to keep up a language in college, and the guaranteed Erasmus really appealed to me. I felt the French law aspect would give me possibilities of potentially working abroad as well. A lot of my classmates, some of them are in France at the minute, Luxembourg, Brussels, Germany. So it really does open up all those possibilities to you. Then once I decided on law, UCD just seemed like the perfect option for me. The new law school is absolutely incredible. The facilities there are just second to none. The lecture theatres, the moot court rooms that we had our advocacy classes in. And then the high caliber of lecturers as well. And it really appealed to me that we had practicing barristers, lecturers as well. And there's just a huge range of subjects in UCD, obviously, that Dr. Howlin has gone through. And then in addition to the law school, the sports facilities are just fantastic. The gym, the swimming pool, the sauna, all the pitches and the halls. So yeah, I'd say UCD is definitely the best college for anyone with an interest in sport. So having played hockey on the UCD pitch for years when I was in school, I always aspired to play for UCD at the highest level. So that was definitely an influencing factor for me that wasn't available at any other university. So safe to say, once I chose UCD Law, there was no looking back. I absolutely loved my 4 years. The range of subjects you can choose from just gives you an opportunity to explore kind of every area of law, be that human rights, media law, sports law. And in addition, you have you can pick electives from all over the university. So I think some of my friends did massage therapy, some did nutrition. I took Spanish in first year. And then just a tip I definitely recommend if anyone's considering the bar or thinking about potentially becoming a barrister, just to keep in mind the subject requirements for the bar as you go through college, just to make sure you kind of have all those boxes ticked once you finish. So as Dr. Howlin said before, the law school, they're great at organizing career events with prospective employers. Sometimes they're formal, sometimes they're just informal chats, but there's so many opportunities. They organize seminars to prepare your CV and prep you for interviews. And I just really recommend just using the time when you're in college. I think in first year of Christmas, we had about a month off. So I actually spent 2 weeks rather, working in a solicitor's firm just to kind of get a bit of insight, test my interests and see what I might like afterwards. And then, as I mentioned, outside the law school, there's just a huge number of clubs and societies to get involved in. I took back up tennis, which was really nice to meet new people. I played a lot of hockey throughout my time in UCD. So we were very lucky. We had a huge amount of success with the team. We won the Irish League, the Irish Cup. But in addition to the competitive side, the sports clubs are just a great way to meet people from all different courses in the university. They're just great at organizing so many different events, social events, balls, and then you have your intervarsity competitions. The clubs are great for organizing loads of different events and getting to know people, and all the societies as well. So I would have been a member of the Law Soc, the LNH, and they do lots of debates, lots of talks. I was also in the Coen that organised trips away and nights out, and the French Society, who had French breakfasts once a week, I think, where we spoke French and ate croissants. So that was great. So yeah, I just recommend to anyone, especially in first year, just pick up anything, try anything, see all the different, there's so many different clubs and societies. So one of my highlights would definitely have to be my Erasmus in third year. There's, as Dr. Howlin went through, there's so many opportunities to go abroad. I had friends all over the world studying, and I just recommend you research the city and the college and check if it's a fit for you. And I think it was one of the best things I did. For those of us in French law, we in first and second year, we found the French law module in UCD quite challenging. Because half of our class were French natives and it was all taught through French with Marie-Luce. So, but then what we found was when we went abroad, we were definitely best placed over and above all the other students from other universities. We were just so well set up, all of us felt, by Marie-Luce, and we flew through the Erasmus while some of the other students struggled quite a bit. So it was really, really beneficial to us. It might have been tough in first and second year, the French law module, but it was really beneficial once we got over there. So I spent the year in Toulouse with 3 other students from my course. I lived with all French students while I was there just to immerse myself in the culture and the language. So I went over with 3 main aims for my year abroad: to improve my French, to get an EU law diploma in the university, and to travel. And I think after Christmas, there wasn't a single weekend that we didn't travel. We went to Paris for a Six Nations rugby game, Montpellier for a Leinster game, Rome, Barcelona, Brussels. It was just, the possibilities were endless. And we met loads of Irish people there. There's people from all the universities in Ireland. You've NUIG, UL, DIT, Trinity, DCU. So it was just a great opportunity to meet new people, try new things. A huge group of the Irish, actually, we joined the Toulouse Gales GAA team, with most of us having never played before, so that was interesting. And then I also joined an indoor hockey club and got the chance to go to Paris and play at the intervarsities there. So it's really just a year of complete independence. I absolutely loved it. I lived at home throughout my time in UCD, so it was just really nice to get away and have that independence. I would highly recommend Toulouse to anybody considering an Erasmus or considering French law. I could talk about it for hours. I won't keep going on about it, but all of us who went there, we absolutely loved it. And then finally, I'll just give you a quick insight into my job as a judicial assistant. So I first heard about the job through actually the Chief Justice internship program with UCD that I did in final year. So I was lucky enough to be selected with one other student, where we spent a month shadowing a judicial assistant. So we went to court every day, we interacted with the judges, and I just found the whole experience really interesting. So the August after I graduated, I applied for the job, had 2 interviews, and I have now been working for nearly 2 years with a judge in the Circuit Criminal Court. And I absolutely love my job. I love it. I hope to go on to sit the bar and become a criminal barrister. So the job just provides me with invaluable experience of sitting in court every day, seeing the barristers in action, working with the judge, carrying out research, and yeah, meeting barristers and solicitors on a daily basis who I hope to work with in the future. So yeah, overall, my experience in UCD has been absolutely fantastic, and I would highly recommend it to all of you.
Thanks very much, Sarah. It's great to hear your enthusiasm for the job that you're doing now. It's always great to hear people who are happy in what they've ended up doing. So I'd now like to move towards the second part of the summer school, which is to introduce some of my academic colleagues who are going to give some mini lectures to give you a taste of the kind of research and teaching that goes on here in the law school. So first up is my very good colleague, Dr. Mark Coen. Who's going to talk to us a little bit about jurors behaving badly.
Thanks very much for that introduction, Niamh, and delighted to speak to you today at this summer school, and hopefully this mini lecture will also give you a flavour of the type of things you'll be considering if you study law in UCD. Now, if we were in person, I'd probably be jumping around the place a bit more and asking people, well, what do you know about juries? Can you shout out anything you know relating to jury trials or juries? So we'll just have to imagine that I'm doing that. But I'm going to speak to you for the next couple of minutes about I suppose a topic with Niamh, Dr. Howlin, who you've heard from already, and myself. Our research area, our main research area, relates to jury trials, and we teach a module of that name, an optional module to 3rd and 4th year students. So I just wanted to give you a little taste of that area of the law relating to juries. And in particular, an area that I find very interesting, which is when jurors misbehave. So there are obviously certain expectations about jurors and how they should behave. The main one is that they should listen to all of the evidence in a trial and return a verdict in accordance with the evidence, that they should only have regard to the material that's put in front of them in the trial, that they shouldn't introduce any material from outside, that they shouldn't visit any locations mentioned in evidence, that they shouldn't conduct any experiments. And Niamh and I have done a study where we interviewed judges about their conduct of jury trials, and it was clear from that study that Irish judges have great respect for jurors. They realise that jurors are ordinary people who are, sort of dragged in against their will to perform the civic function of jury service. So the judges we interviewed, 22 judges with experience of presiding over criminal trials, took the view that, well, it would be very rare for a juror to misbehave. And certainly there have been more high-profile incidences of jury misbehaviour in England, but obviously it's a much bigger country than ours, so more cases and so on. But there have been 1 or 2 cases in Ireland that have collapsed because jurors engaged in improper behaviour. But the cases I'm going to speak to you about briefly now are English cases. They provide the most kind of vivid facts, I think, in this area. And of course, I should have said at the outset, I'm very interested in jury trials. Niamh is very interested in jury trials, but and you might think from watching law-related programs on television or listening to podcasts or whatever that juries are involved in every criminal trial, but in fact they're not. Most criminal trials take place in the district court before a judge sitting on their own, and it's only a tiny proportion of trials that are heard by jury, but they are the most serious offences. So in our system, if somebody is charged with murder and facing trial for that offence, or rape, or a serious assault, they have to be tried by jury. So it's numerically, I suppose, a small percentage, probably less than 1% of criminal trials per annum that are tried by jury, but they are the most serious offences in Irish criminal law. So I just thought I'd give you a flavour of the sort of newspaper coverage that has been around in the last few years, probably the last 15 or 20 years, regarding jurors. So you can see various headlines here about juror misbehaviour, and the media in England love these cases and they get a lot of coverage. As I say, we haven't really had the same high profile types of misconduct in Ireland, although, as I say, 1 or 2 cases have collapsed because it has been, when it was revealed that jurors engaged in internet research. So you can see that quite a few of these headlines relate to internet research, which or internet activity, and the internet, I suppose, poses huge risks to the integrity of jury trial because you can go, everyone's a researcher, you can go searching for anything, and we all do it throughout the day. You know, we hear about something, we want to buy something, we go to the internet, we look it up, what are other people saying, and so on. In a criminal trial, that's hugely problematic because there are rules of evidence about what can and cannot be put in front of a jury. And previous criminal convictions are generally not something that can be referred to in front of the jury. We don't have the time to go into the rationale for that now. We'll just leave. We'll just sort of take that point. But so if you are a juror in a trial, you won't hear generally about the previous convictions of the accused person. But if you go online, you might very well find out that this person has previous convictions, and that's not regarded as fair to the accused, and it's regarded as a breach of your oath as a juror to return a verdict in accordance with the evidence. But you can see some of these types of misconduct don't relate to the internet. So the one on the bottom right there, lengthy trial aborted after jurors played Sudoku. So, you know, apparently taking notes, but actually playing Sudoku. Another juror who had an MP3 player concealed on their person that they were listening to during the trial. So I just wanted to talk briefly about a number of cases. Probably the most famous case is an English case from the early 1990s called Young. Here, Young had been convicted of murder, but it emerged that a number of jurors, and this was a time when jurors, when they were deliberating, were kept in a hotel for the night. The rule was they couldn't separate, so if the deliberations lasted into the evening, the jury had to be sent to a hotel together. So basically what emerged was that a number of jurors during the night in the hotel had consulted a Ouija board and had asked the board to indicate, you know, who done it, basically, you know, who had committed the murder, and they believed they got an answer from this Ouija board, which informed their view of the guilt of the accused. So perhaps unsurprisingly, the verdict was set aside on appeal because of this irregularity. And there's a quote there from Lord Taylor, who says, the judge, who says, most people would regard attempts to communicate with the dead as futile, but these 4 jurors went through the motions of asking questions to that end and apparently receiving answers. And then he said, the question is not whether the answers came from the deceased, but what the jurors believed regarding the answers that they felt were indicated by the Ouija board. So, you know, that was obviously impermissible behavior on the part of the jurors. They had done something, you know, which I think most people would regard as farcical, really. But you know, they believed the result of their investigation. So that verdict was set aside. But usually when a verdict is set aside, there would be a retrial with a different jury. A more recent incident then is the case of Joanne Frail from 2011. So Joanne Frail is pictured there on the left, and on the right is the smiling face of the then Lord Chief Justice of England and Wales, Lord Judge. But he wasn't too happy with Joanne Frail because she was a juror in a trial, and she went on Facebook and started communicating with one of the people she was trying and entered into a discussion about the content of the jury deliberations in that case. And smiling Lord Judge said rather sternly, if jurors make their own inquiries into aspects of the trial, the jury system as we know it so precious to the administration of criminal justice in this country, will be seriously undermined. What is more, the public confidence on which it depends will be shaken. And he, that's just an extract. Obviously, he says much more, but he was extremely annoyed with Joanne Frail's behaviour. And you might be surprised to hear that he jailed her for 8 months for contempt of court, for engaging in that Facebook conversation with one of the accused persons. Another English case involving a university lecturer, if you don't mind, pictured here, Theodora Dallas is her name. She was jailed for 6 months for contempt of court for conducting independent research into the past criminal record of the accused online. Now, one of her excuses at trial for contempt was, well, my English isn't very good, so she was a non-native English speaker, so I was looking up the meaning of particular words, like grievous in the offence, grievous bodily harm, but the court gave that excuse short shrift and said, well, you wrote a PhD thesis in English, so we don't really believe that, and anyway, there's no excuse for looking up the person who was on trial and finding out about their criminal record. So again, Lord Judge said here rather sternly that basically people who acted like Dr. Dallas were setting themselves up above the jury system and treating the principles that govern it with contempt. And he said the jury system would become extinct if this sort of behaviour was tolerated. And he said he would not tolerate it. And he sent Theodora Dallas to jail for 6 months. So quite, I suppose, strong penalties for engaging in forbidden behaviour as a juror. Again, we haven't seen any instances of this in Ireland, and the judges, Dr. Howlin and I interviewed, indicated that they regarded sort of jailing jurors in this way. One of the judges said, well, that's to get engaged in a sideshow circus. The main objective has to be the trial. You're getting distracted from that if you're going after jurors and jailing them. But at the same time, many of the interviewees, the judges we spoke to, didn't rule out the possibility of jailing a juror for contempt if their misbehaviour was serious enough. And finally then, before I pass over to my colleague, Dr. Kelly, I suppose a more minor type of misconduct, but one nonetheless, was the behaviour of the 19-year-old pictured here, Matthew Banks, a student who was sitting on a jury and in Manchester, and one morning basically he rang in and said that he was sick and couldn't come to court that day, so the trial had to wait. No evidence could be heard, but actually he wasn't sick. He went to London to see the musical Chicago, and this was discovered, and he was jailed for 14 days, but he actually only served 5 days because Christmas was approaching. He would have been in jail for Christmas. There was a lot of media coverage afterwards where he was giving interviews saying how terrified he was in the prison, that it was a ludicrous sanction, and so on. But there you go. Even if you don't decide to study law, if you decide, when you're going out into the world, if you're called to be a juror in a case, take care, don't engage in any of these prohibited forms of conduct. So that's just a very brief taster of the sort of thing that we might look at in the context of a law degree at UCD. So I will stop sharing my screen now, and I will hand over to my colleague, Dr. Kelly, and Dr. Kelly is going to speak to you about aspects of consumer law, and I think is going to be a lot more interactive than I was. So over to you, Cliona.
Thanks, Mark. I am going to run a little quiz with you, so hopefully you can all see my screen. So if you go to slido.com, and I think the link was sent to you in the email when you registered, and if you put in the hashtag, the password consumer law, so capital C and capital L, and it should bring you, hopefully, if this works, into this quiz. Also, apologies, my next door neighbours appear to be building new decking, so if you hear building work in the background, that's what that is. So this is actually an example of the kind of way that we would actually operate in class in UCD, that we would often give students sort of mini, what we call problem questions, so hypothetical scenarios involving the law, and we'd ask students to comment on what they think that the law would be. Now, the examples I'm going to do with you here today involve consumer law, and they're fairly straightforward, and to a certain extent there is a correct answer, but that won't always be the case in law. So I saw some of you were asking questions sort of saying, well, do you have to learn all the law off? And that's not really what a law degree is about. It's not about learning a bunch of rules. It's about analysing the law and applying the law, and there's not always a clear answer. There's not always necessarily a given answer. But that said, the ones I'm doing with you today, hopefully there will be a bit of an answer. So the first question, Sinead buys a laptop from Computers R Us, but doesn't buy the manufacturer's warranty. The laptop breaks down, the laptop breaks down after 2 months and won't turn on. Does she have any rights? So you can vote yes, she has rights. No, because she didn't buy the warranty. So do you need the manufacturer's warranty? Or no, because it's more than 30 days after she bought it. So if you've all logged on, I get to vote. And I will click the right answer then. Maybe we try and get to 90 people. We'll get a few more votes in. Can we do it? Okay, maybe I'll get to 80. Or have we stopped? Okay, I'll be nice. I'll give you the answer. Okay, the answer is that yes, she does have rights. Okay, looking at the warranty issue first, you do not need a warranty. Okay, so warranties that manufacturers give you are an additional extra, and they don't actually have any impact on your legal rights. So you still have all your legal rights, even if you don't buy the warranty, or even if the warranty says you only have rights for the first 30 days. Doesn't matter, your legal rights are different to that. So you're not restricted by that warranty. You don't need to buy the warranty. Similarly, some people say, well, it's more than 30 days after she bought it. And again, your rights are not just for 30 days. So under consumer legislation, some rights you only have at the beginning. So the right to a complete refund might only be available for about 30 days, but your right to a repair or replacement goes on much longer than that. For at least 2 years. Okay, so she definitely has rights. So well done to 59% of you that got that one right. And those of you that got it wrong, don't panic too much, because when I asked this question to my final year students, quite a few of them also said no. So you're not alone there. Okay, the next question. So this is the same scenario with Sinead and her laptop. The shop tells Sinead the laptop wasn't faulty when they gave it to her and she must have broken it. So does she have to prove it was faulty? Okay, so does she have to prove it was faulty when she got it? What do we think? Okay, I put in an I'm not sure answer there for those of you who maybe aren't too sure but still want to have a vote. Oh, we're not too sure here. We're very even. Most of us are going for no. Okay, good. Okay, so the answer is no, she doesn't have to prove it was faulty. And that's because there is an EU rule that says if you buy goods, within the first 6 months of purchasing the good, and there's an assumption that any fault that turns up in the first 6 months was there when you bought it. So because, if this happened within the first 6 months and a fault arises, the assumption is there that that fault was there when she bought the laptop, so she doesn't have to prove it was faulty. The shop tells Sinead she's no rights because she cannot find the receipt. Is this true? Okay. So this is one of the things people have to say, I want to return something to a shop, but I can't find the receipt. Or the shop says you can't return something because you haven't got a receipt. What do we think? Okay, we're all fairly clued in on this one. So yeah, no, it's not true. She doesn't need the receipt. And that's because if you look at the legislation, it doesn't actually say you have to have a receipt. What she might have to do is potentially prove that she did purchase it from that shop within a particular time frame. But you can do that with, for example, like a debit or your bank statement. So if you've got your bank statement that shows you purchased an item on a particular day, then that's enough to prove purchase. Or even sometimes if you buy something from a shop like Tesco, when it's a Tesco branded item, or a little branded item, it's clear it came from that shop. So you might not even need that. But you certainly don't need a receipt. Proof of purchase of some sort is usually enough. Okay, next one. The shop gives Sinead the phone number of the manufacturer of the laptop and tells her she has to phone the manufacturer directly. they say, look, we didn't make the laptop. You need to contact the manufacturer. It's their problem, not ours. Does she have to do this? Okay. Very good. So we're all fairly included in this one. So no, she doesn't have to do this. So the idea here is that her contract is with the shop. Okay, so she entered into a contract with the shop. She brought it from them, not from the manufacturer. Okay, now sometimes it might suit her if the manufacturer, you know, has a helpline. It might suit her to do that, but she doesn't have to. And that's the key point. Okay, and the legal phrase for that is privity of contract. It's the fancy legal phrase we give that. So that's one of the legal terms you'll be learning about next year. Okay, we're nearly there. Two more. Tom buys a new phone in his local phone shop. That evening, he changes his mind, decides he wants to return it, still unopened, in its packaging. Has he got a legal right to return it? So I've said, yes, he can return and get a refund. He can return and get a credit note, or no. So what do we think here? Okay. And again, if you don't know any of this, this is all completely new to you. You know, if you haven't studied business studies or anything, don't worry about it. One of the students said that they studied science when they were in school, and I was the same. I didn't do any business studies or any history or anything like that. Like, we teach you all this when you come into the law school. Okay, so the answer here is actually no. So legally, he doesn't actually have a right to return it. He has entered into a contract. He has the phone. And there's nothing wrong with it. So there's no actual reason why he can return it. Okay, so legally he actually can't return it. Now, a lot of shops will let you return it. They'll have a policy of letting you return it, and that's a different thing. But, you know, it's not actually a legal right to return it. Technically, the contract has been completed and he can't just change his mind. We can contrast that with this scenario. So instead of buying it in a shop, he buys it online. So this time when it arrives, he changes his mind and wants to return it. Still unopened. This time, does he have a legal right to return it? So if you buy something online, how do your rights change? Very good. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. Most of you are aware that you have 14 days to return something. And that's even if it's not faulty. So you can just simply change your mind and you can return it. Although you do generally have to pay for postage to return it. So you'll get your delivery charge for bringing it to you. You get that refunded, but you do have to pay to return it to the online shop. And the idea behind that is that if you're buying something online, you can't physically see it. Okay, so you might buy, you know, a dress and convince yourself, you know, you're a size 12 and it arrives and doesn't fit. You know, whereas if you're in a shop, you can actually go into a changing room and try it on. So new legislation was introduced to protect consumers online. Okay. So that is pretty much it. I was going to do a slide asking if anyone had any questions about consumer law, but I don't think I've got time. But that will give you an idea of the kind of things that we look at in law. Although do bear in mind that when you're studying law, the questions are not really as clear cut as this. There's very rarely a right or wrong answer, a correct answer. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you. There you go, Una.
Yes, thanks, Cliona. That was really interesting. And I know we're running a little bit over time, but we do have some questions. And I know a lot of the questions were answered in the question and answers box. But what I'll do is I'll put a few questions to our panel, and hopefully you can stay and listen to the answers. The first question is for Niamh, and it's somebody's asking about study abroad. Is it only when you study law with a language?
Okay, that's a good question. So if you study law with a language, you will take a period of time to study abroad. That's built into your degree. But on any of the other degree programs, you also have the option to study abroad for maybe a semester, if that's something that you want to do. So it's an option that's there. And generally speaking, about a third of our students would take that option in their third year.
I was saying as well, some universities are more in demand than others. So, you know, you won't necessarily get your top choice. It does depend. There's a competitive process for getting the top one. So generally people all want to go to Australia, basically. But most students are happy though, I think, with where they get in the end. Yeah.
Somebody did ask, and I answered a response about law with Irish. I mean, where would you go? The Gaeltacht. But the reality is we do have a partnership with a university in Canada for law with Irish, because they do Celtic studies there. So yes, for all of our degree programs, there are options. So Cliona, while you're on screen, I have a question for you in relation to business and law. if I study business and law and I want to become a solicitor, or you know, what will I have done enough law in order to proceed to do the exams?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, if you want to become a solicitor, you have to sit the FE1 exam. So there's 8 exams. And essentially what you need to do is you need to, and this applies to any law degree, because you do select, you choose your options. And what you need to do is you need to look and see, well, what exams do I, or what subjects do I need to have covered myself to do the King's Inns or to go and become a solicitor. So if you look at the FE1 list, you'll see the 8 subjects, and it is possible to do all 8 modules as part of any of our degree programs, really, part of business and law or law. But you do have to go and check with the professional bodies and check those lists and make sure you keep on top of that, because you know that's outside our remit. Okay, and it's the same with the King's Inns. They might expect you to do certain modules, and then they've got exams in certain modules, and you need to just check those lists. But it's absolutely possible. There is enough space in the business and law degree to do all those modules. You do have fewer options in business and law because you're doing business modules and you're doing law modules, and it's, you know, so you do have fewer options, but certainly you can hit all the ones you want to do for the professions. Absolutely. Yeah.
Cliona. My next question then is from Mark. Somebody was asking if you would be at a disadvantage if you did law with versus say law on its own.
Okay, that's a really good question, and it's one that we're asked a lot. And I think the answer I would give, maybe Cliona and Niamh would give different answers, but it depends very much on what you're interested in, I think. I think that needs to be the starting point. So I wouldn't be saying that there can be a tendency, I think, for students or maybe career guidance teachers or parents to think, well, if I do 2 subjects, I'll be better off. And that's not necessarily the case. It could well be that, you know, doing law with economics opens up avenues to you that maybe law on its own wouldn't open up, or it may be that law and social justice will be very beneficial if you'd like to work in the non-governmental organisation sector, or but equally that there are a lot of things you can do with a law degree without an additional subject. So I would think very carefully about doing, as we call them, a law with. If you love history and you just want to really continue your history from school while also doing a law degree, then do law with history, absolutely. But I wouldn't, my advice would probably not to be thinking sort of overly strategically in relation to employment. I would say do the course that matches best with your interests, whether that is a law with or law on its own. If you do law on its own, you know, there are certain advantages in the sense that you know, you've access to a wider range of law optional subjects than if you were, you know, you just have more space to do more law. If you think that's what you want to do, you also have a wider range of study abroad opportunities. But it's very much one that I think needs to be guided by your individual interests. And of course, even if you do law on its own, you can also then, you will be sampling other subjects outside law through UCD Horizons, where every student does, you know, can pick, say, a history module or a philosophy module or whatever, and actually has to do that. So it's not that if you do law on its own, you will just be doing law because UCD Horizons is there. So if you don't know about UCD Horizons, I'd encourage you to look up the information on that also.
Thanks, Mark. And that actually brings me on to the next question, which I'm going to ask Niamh, which is about the possibility of switching. So if you choose on your CAO, you choose one particular program, what are the possibilities to switch when you get to college?
Okay, that's a good question, because I think people often feel under pressure when they're filling out their CAO options that they have to make the right choice. And there's a lot of pressure, I think, on Leaving Cert students. It's not impossible to switch from one degree to another. If by Christmas of first year you realize this really isn't for me, I really don't like the politics, or I don't like the history, or whatever it is possible to switch around. So the reason that we have just one CAO code for all of those different BCL degrees, law on its own or law with philosophy, is partly to make it easier for students who want to switch once they've begun.
Thanks, Niamh. The next question then relates to internships. We saw that Emer spoke about the fact that she's on an internship and she's studying law with Chinese, and somebody was asking then, can they do internships, or how do internships work within the school? So Mark, maybe you could answer that?
Yeah, thanks, Una. So yes, so basically the law school is from January 2022, we're running a semester-long internship program, which will be open initially to students doing BCL without law without an additional subject, but it is our intention to broaden that over time to include the law with subjects. So again, as Cliona said, in relation to study abroad, you know, we're not guaranteeing every student an internship. There will be a number of places with potential employers, law firms, in-house legal advisors in, say, the likes of IBM, maybe a computer firm, and hopefully placements with NGOs. So, for example, maybe the Irish Penal Reform Trust or a body like that. But they will be competitive, so you will have to apply for them. They're instead of the study abroad option, which is, you know, they happen at the same time. That's something to bear in mind. I did see as well in the question, somebody was asking if I do BBL, can I do a law internship? And I see Cliona was typing an answer. So Cliona, I don't know, do you want to say the answer to that? Because
no, you know more about me. I actually wasn't sure as I was typing. Then, yeah,
I'm actually not sure. I have to say in relation to that. Certainly the internship program as it's currently in place for January 22, as I say, is the idea is that it would be for the BCL programs and initially for BCL law on its own. But as I say, I think that will widen out to include the other, you know, law with philosophy, law with history, and so on. In relation to the BBL, I'm actually not sure, but I think that might come under the business schools remit, but I'm actually not sure. All I can say is that I know it doesn't come within the internship that I
think the issue is lack of space in the timetable because they do so much already. But I think the point I was trying to make was that you can still do internships. They just might not necessarily be a module in your degree. So you can still do, like, loads of our students will do internships, you know, at the same time as their degree, or at summer, or organizing themselves. There's lots of opportunities out there, even outside an official module.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. So yeah, I suppose I'm talking about the formal internship that would be part of your degree, but I mean, it would be extremely common, as Cliona says, for our students to do internships in the summer with firms. And, you know, so you might want to do your study abroad semester and an internship. You know, you do your study abroad through us and then you do an internship at another time.
Thanks, Mark. And I'm going to answer one of the questions which relates to the CAO points. Because in 2020, as we all know, with the circumstances of the way the Leaving Cert ran, the points actually were much higher than they had been in previous years. So in fact, our the BCL and the BBL were 546 and 545 respectively. But the year prior to that, in 2019, they were 522 and 521, and they're a pretty good reference. They're a pretty good reference, I'd say, for 2022. It's hard to know with 2021, as we all know, the Leaving Cert is taking place this year. So in reality, they will probably resemble last year's, the 2020 points, more closely. But generally, our points, as I said, are in the 520s, you know, and it's just what's gone on in the last year has had an influence on that. There are a lot of very specific questions people are asking about scholarships and fees, and a lot of this information is available either on our website, which is ucd.ie/law, or the general UCD website. It's very easy to find anything about scholarships or fees just by Googling UCD scholarships, etc. So if we haven't answered all of your questions, please do that, or please email us if you wish as well, and we'd be happy to get into a conversation with you. Our email address is UG, which stands for undergraduate, uglaw@ucd.ie. We also have a lot of resources on our YouTube channel, like the summer school we ran last year is on that. Plus, you would have got an email from me with all of the resources from our open evening and open day. So I suggest at your leisure to look at those videos. To, for instance, we have students talking about the different programs, because today we didn't focus so much on like exactly what's involved with the different law with programs. All of that information is available on our YouTube channel, where individual students speak about why they chose and how they have found their individual programs. So I think we'll finish at that, because we have run over time, and apologies for that, unless any of my colleagues have any other additions to add to our conversation today. We're ready to.
Somebody just asked for that email address again.
Apologies. It's UG at ucd.ie.
So uglaw@ucd.ie. I'm just typing it in here, so I don't get
Great.
wrong myself now.
Yeah, and this webinar will be available in a week or so on our YouTube channel. It's very easy to find our YouTube channel. It's if you just Google UCD Sutherland School of Law YouTube, you'll find our YouTube channel where all our resources are. But the email, the confirmation email you got from me yesterday had links to the YouTube channel also. So thank you again, and we hope you enjoyed your day today, and I hope you got plenty from it. And please do follow up and ask us questions if you have anything further to ask about what we spoke about. Thank you.